Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite huggable, handsome, hairy homos to bring to you movies either current or classic. And this week, we're bringing you something current that maybe question mark has a bit of a classic feel. We're going to be reviewing Violent Night, the new holiday film question mark starring David Harbour. Definitely interested to get into this conversation with my co-host because I sense there are going to be some feelings about this movie, and I can't wait to hear them. But before we dive into that, let me introduce you to my wonderful co-host. Jim Pugliafco is with us in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart.
I am here, trying to fight for camera time with my cat, with our cat Jordy here. Yes, thanks, babe. I'm excited for the show. We'll, talking about a new movie, a new holiday movie. It's getting to be that time of year. We'll talk about whether this movie put us more in the Christmas spirit or not. But I'm looking forward to it.
Indeed. And we have someone in the live chat, Andrew, who says, it's too bad the listening audience can't hear the cat. Yeah, Jordy, for those who can see, Jordy's got his face all up in your camera. I don't know what he's doing, but
He's chasing the mouse that I have. So I'll put it down here. Maybe
is that what it is?
Down here, yeah.
Nice. Well, glad you and Jordy could both
Not
join
the
us
mouse,
on
the
show.
cursor. I'm just chasing the cursor.
Nice. Will Lindis is here as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey, yeah, I'm ready for this one too. It feels like we've got a nice little ramp up through the rest of the year, through the holidays, heading into the new year, and this sort of kickstarts it, right? We're getting something a little bit festive, a little bit fun. We'll see how we like it. But yeah, I'm excited to hear where you guys landed on this one because sometimes you come into these episodes and you're like, all right, Brad's going to love this one. Jim's going to hate this one. This one, I actually don't know. I think both of you could go either way. So
I love when you try to guess, Will, like what we thought of a movie. That's interesting.
I'm okay. I'll write down my predictions. We'll see if they come true.
That's something might be fun to do, like on a periodic basis, is like before movies are reviewed by us, like we each kind of state what we think the other person is gonna like, whether they're gonna like it, be thumbs up, thumbs down, or sideways on it. It'd be interesting.
Well, I've called my shot on this one. Let's see how you guys
keep score.
Match up to my expectations of you.
Now, here's the thing. Do you need to reveal it ahead of us giving our thoughts? Because otherwise you could just like let us go first and then pretend.
Oh, honor system, man. I wrote it down. I'm not gonna lie on that.
Okay.
I want you, because otherwise then it's like, I want you guys to be able to share your thoughts, like
we can all reveal it and then get into the review. Yeah.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, we are reviewing Violent Night, the new film starring David Harbour. A lot of people out there are saying this is a new Christmas classic film. This is going to be on their watch list forever. A lot of people are saying this movie was a piece of shit and they'll never watch it again. And there's a lot of people in the middle. So it'll be interesting to see where the three of us come down, because I don't really know yet. But also, we've got several people who are live listening right now. If you've seen the movie, we'd love to hear your thoughts too. Of course, we're going to talk about the movie spoiler free for about the first 10 minutes or so. We'll give you our initial impressions without taking you to spoiler town. And then when we're ready to take the can of spoilers and just rip it open and bathe in them, we'll give you plenty of warning for that too. So all of that said, Jim, Will, are you fellas ready for some Violent Night?
Yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, let's stuff this stocking.
Nice. All right. Well, then here we go. Our discussion of Violent Night. All right. So, Will, do us a favor, if you don't mind, and give us a brief setup of this film. What is it? What is it about? as well as your initial impressions. Was this something that was worth going out and seeing? Is this something that maybe you'd like wait to stream, or would you skip it entirely? Where'd you come down?
Absolutely. So, Violent Night, a new film by director Tommy Wirkola, a guy who gave us movies we didn't super enjoy, like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, and movies that I think are absolutely worth watching, like the Dead Snow series of films. Violent Night stars David Harbour as Santa Claus. Santa Claus is going house to house doing what Santa Claus does on Christmas Eve. He comes to one house where he comes across a group of mercenaries who have taken an extraordinarily wealthy family hostage. Santa Claus soon finds himself behind enemy lines a la Die Hard, sort of like what if Die Hard was a Christmas movie? That's sort of what we get here, as Santa Claus is forced to fight his way through all of these different mercenaries to try to survive the night and save the family. This is an incredibly violent movie, and I think that this movie is exactly what it says on the tin, right? So this is one of those movies I feel like you kind of know before you sit down whether or not you're going to like it or not, because it doesn't necessarily do anything too wild outside of its premise. For what it's worth, I enjoyed it for what it was. Like this is a silly movie that you have to be on the right vibe for, right? And if you're not on the right vibe for it, you're probably not going to have a good time. But if you just sort of say, look, Santa Claus is going to decapitate some motherfuckers. He's going to like stab someone with a candy cane. There's going to be blood. There's going to be holiday puns. Like if you're ready for all of that, this movie delivers exactly that. David Harbour is really good here. I think David Harbour is one of those dudes who he plays betrodden and like sort of down on your luck in a very, very effective way, right? Like, a lot of the characters that he plays the best are the ones who feel like they're a little like schlumpy, but still like able to like hold their own, between this, Red Guardian, even his character from Stranger Things. And I think that works for this iteration of Santa. The villains are very paper thin, but I think that's okay for what we have here. We need a body count. And we really want to spend our time with Santa and kind of like the main girl that he's interacting with here. So I think it's okay that the villains are a little superficial. They just need to be fodder. The kills are fun. There's one in particular when we get to spoilers that I especially loved because I thought it was probably the most inspired part of this movie. I mean, you know what you're getting into when you watch this movie. If you want something violent but also Christmas themed, check out Violent Night. If that's not your thing, if that's not what gives you the warm fuzzies for Christmas, see literally anything else. I think this is a very, very easy like binary path for me on whether or not to recommend it. I like horror movies. I like action films. So, I was on the yes camp.
All right. Will, thanks so much for weighing in and letting us know your initial thoughts. Jim, how about for you? Where did you come down on this one?
Yeah, so boy, this movie didn't really do it for me. Will, I'm listening to your review and everything you said is great. I don't think I was in the right frame of mind for this movie. I knew what it was going in. I knew it was going to be really bloody and gory, and that stuff doesn't bother me necessarily. There's a ton of gunplay in this movie. You guys know how I feel about like heavy gunplay movies. They don't really do all that much for me, and I socially not sure it's what we need. But so there's a lot of that in this film. I think it's hard for me to, I'm not going to tell anybody not to see this film because I think by the reactions of the audience in our screening, we'll talk about that a little bit too. That was interesting. Brad will talk about that too. I think a lot of people really dug this movie. It is exactly that. It's best features, I think, lean heavily, if not totally rip off other movies, elements of other movies. Obviously it leans hard on Die Hard. It leans hard on Home Alone, quite a bit. So there's a couple of other Christmas films that this movie kind of leans heavily on, and then just cranks up the gore to about 10. I don't know at the end of this movie, what I expected to get out of it, but for me, I don't think this is a really great movie. But if really all you want to see is violence and kills and gore, this movie's gonna wet your whistle, no problem at all. I know it has David Harbour, and a lot of people think he's hot, but when he's covered with blood and puke most of the movie, I'm not sure that that's gonna float a lot of people's boats, but maybe it still does. And I know there's kinks
Hey, don't
aside. I don't
shame
kinks aside, I don't think that's gonna. It's certainly not gonna do it for me. I thought, his performance was fine. As his performance was good. So is John Leguizamo's. I always like John Leguizamo and everything. But yeah, it's basically just gory kill after gory kill, and in between a couple of quips and that weren't super funny. I don't think this movie was that funny. Although I think it intended to be. I don't think this isn't a horror movie. This isn't really I guess you could call it a holiday thriller. But it isn't. To me, it fails as a comedy for sure. So yeah, not for me. I think a lot of people are going to love it. I think people should see it, whether they see it. I don't know if this movie is scheduled to stream before Christmas or not. But if you're going to go out and see it, just be in a better frame of mind for it than I was.
Oh. All right. Well, Jim, sorry to hear that it didn't wet your whistle, maybe, but really appreciate you expounding on your thoughts here, for sure.
Yeah, I see Andrew's comment. He's absolutely right. Santa, maybe I should empathize with Santa more. He is anti-gun, like I am, but he's definitely pro sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Right. So
hey, he brought a sledgehammer to a gunfight.
Indeed, indeed. We'll be a little careful about that stuff. We don't want to spoil anybody, of course. We don't want to spoil Christmas. But Pasquale's in the chat. He says, "Hey lads,
Hey,
hello
Pasquale.
there. Welcome. Glad to have you with us."
Howdy.
I guess it's my turn to chime in with some thoughts about this movie. I don't think this is the best movie ever, nor do I think it's the worst movie ever. I think you definitely know what you're getting into based on the trailer. And one thing we haven't really talked about yet, and it's in one of the trailers, not just is Santa coming to the rescue of this wealthy family that is, under siege from home invaders, but there's a little girl, guys, and it's about her
the true
belief in
meaning of
Santa
Christmas.
Claus. Yeah. She's the Virginia of this movie, and
Our Cindy Lou Who.
right. And there's certainly an element to this story about like the magic of Santa and the magic of belief, and it's kind of interesting to juxtapose that against all this violence that's happening and Santa having to kill all these people to try and save Christmas. I think it's an interesting dichotomy. I am not a super violent person, at least I don't think that I am. But I sometimes enjoy cool action sequences. The John Wick movies totally glorify gun violence. I am not a gun nut. I am not in favor of gun violence, but they do some cool things, and I'm kind of like, sorry, I totally just got distracted for a second and forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, so the John Wick movies glorify violence. And this movie, I feel like, operates in a similar vein, right? The violence is happening on screen. They're very cool moments. But at the end of the day, it is still a violent movie. So if you don't do well with violence in films, this is probably not a good movie for you to see. But I really love David Harbour in this film. He's definitely playing some echoes of Hopper from Stranger Things. But I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. We had Beverly D'Angelo in this film, who is also great as kind of the matriarch of the family. I really enjoyed some of the scenes with her character and the home invaders. Otherwise, the cast is kind of forgettable. I mean, it's nothing the focus is on Santa Claus and the little girl, basically. And that's the story that I showed up to see. That's the story that I enjoyed getting. I like this movie. I liked it quite a bit. I do appreciate that this was an actual Santa Claus and not like a mall Santa or something who gets embroiled in a home invasion. It was cool to have like a down on his luck Santa, kind of grousing and, kind of seeing the arc that he goes throughout the movie from where he starts to where he ends up. So this is definitely one I would say, if you don't have young children and you're fine with violence in movies, this is probably a good one for you to go out and see. Andrew mentioned earlier up thread in the chat that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And, obviously having a Santa Claus, this makes it a Christmas movie too. But I don't know. It was kind of cool to see this like baby of Home Alone and Die Hard. Like if you'd asked me this time last year if I'd be seeing a movie like that at Christmas, I'd have been like, that doesn't even sound good. No. But it worked for me. I liked it. So there you
go. Yeah, this movie, we talked about Home Alone. We'll talk more in spoilers, but I was shocked at how well this young girl at the center of this film reacted to what was going on around her. I'm not sure any kid that, 9, 10, 11, or however old she was, whether that was anything close to realistic at all. But then again, mentioning the word realistic in the same breath as reviewing this movie probably is bad enough in itself. So, but now that I think of it, I'm like, I'm sure any other kid would have been a bawling mess of a quivering puddle from the beginning of the movie to the end.
I think that would have made it less fun movie, right? Like, I think this movie is not about like realistic people in a realistic situation. This movie is about Santa Claus fulfilling the wishes of a family who most needs a Christmas miracle through, stabbing people in the eye and decapitations and all sorts of random acts of violence. And I think that the girl here, what I like about her performance here is that, you mentioned sort of like the Cindy Lou Who, just her that character whose goal is to sort of like maintain like the spirit of Christmas in their heart, even while everything else is happening around them. I like that we had that type of character even here. Now, I am looking at my notes, and I will say that I had the two of you reversed, just in full disclosure. I came into this one, my little prediction from earlier. I thought Jim was gonna say, I didn't love it, but I could appreciate where it was coming from. And I thought Brad was gonna say I fucking hated it. So
well, he's a huge fan of Home Alone.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this would be kind of up that alley.
Yeah. I suppose. But Will, I could definitely see how you might think that. I may not have enjoyed it as much, but
yeah,
there we go. Them's the results. So
them's the results.
He's also a big fan of David Harbour.
Well, yes. And I know we should. I know we're about to get to spoilers, but one thing I'm very happy to spoil for audience members of this show who might be so interested, if your litmus test for whether or not I go see this movie is, does David Harbour take off his shirt? The answer is yes. So you should definitely go see the movie. If that is if that's the spoiler you want, then that's the spoiler I'm going to give you. Go check it out.
I was saving that for the first thing that we talked about when we made the jump to spoilers, because I know
the spoiler before the spoilers.
Yeah,
I guess.
We'll talk about the
context
so. For it, but yeah.
Sorry that we spoiled you. If that was your Christmas surprise, we try to not give spoilers, but sometimes the thoughts, they just come out. So,
and sometimes they're appropriate. Sometimes they're like the thing that'll help decide whether or not you go check it out. We love our eye candy in our community. So
That we do. That we do. All right, fellas. Well, we've already kind of gone to spoilers, so now may be the time to go ahead and just make that full transition. Are you fellas ready?
I'm
Yeah,
ready.
let's do it.
All right. Spoilers for Violent Night are officially fair game. I'm slowly talking to give you an opportunity. If you're listening live, go ahead and step away for the next 24 minutes or so, then come on back for our plugs toward the end of the show. If you are listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, however you listen to your podcast, you can use the time index in the show notes to skip around as needed. And if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're stepping away, we definitely invite you to go watch it, then come on back and listen to the spoilery part of our review. Let us know your thoughts, even if you can't be with us right now because you haven't seen it. We'd love to hear from you on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Drop us a line. All right, guys, spoilers. Totally happening right now. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. Did you want to talk about I mean, we can talk a little bit about David Harbour, and we talked, up front about, like, yeah, he takes off his shirt, but I think the context for it here is this is a Santa Claus who he takes some lumps through the course of this movie, right? This is when we're talking about the bloody violence, it's not just slapstick comedy, although that exists, right? Some of the horror is a little like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I mean, he's getting stabbed and bruised and beaten himself. It feels a lot more like, honestly, the closest analog would probably be John Wick in terms of like what this movie feels like in terms of one man versus like an army. And he's definitely more than a match for them. But at the same time, like by the end of it, he is just battered and bruised meat through the process. But along the way, we do get to see him doing a shirtless self-surgery, stitching up I believe a knife wound. So I don't know if Brad, I'll turn to you because I know you're a Harbour fan. When during that scene, was it like, oh no, he's injured, or was it just like, well, I'm gonna enjoy the scene while it's here? How did you feel?
Yeah, Jim mentioned earlier that the like blood and stuff can be a bit of a detractor. I think my brain applies some masking over the screen of the bloody gross parts, and I just look at the parts that I enjoy. Like he pulled off his Santa jacket, and I don't have like a Santa fetish or anything. I know people who do, and I think that's awesome. But like when he ripped the Santa jacket like off, I was just like, okay, I kind of get the Santa thing. This is a little hot. Okay. I think my brain kind of masked out the whole like, you know, using a Christmas ornament hook as a sewing needle. That was clever.
Yeah.
But I just didn't pay attention to the gushing blood, and I just looked at the hairy chest and the dad bod tummy, and I was a very, very happy Brad. I'll just say that.
I'm surprised with an R rating they didn't go further. I mean, shirtless is certainly not anything that pushes an R rating, but I don't know. This movie obviously wanted to push the gore and violence aspect of the R and language. By the way,
Yeah.
So there's plenty of fucks in this movie. This movie gives a lot of fucks. It's not a kids movie, even though there's a kid in it, or it's definitely not a kids movie. So I'm bummed for you, Brad, and and other folks that really dig David Harbour that you didn't get more of David Harbour's candy cane. I'm just saying.
So Jim, you would have been happier if we'd gotten to see the North Pole.
Yeah. I would have been. I would have given the movie more credit if you had gotten to see the North Pole. I mean, you've got an R rating. You might as well put it out there.
But we did get a lot of Santa sack, so that kind of made up for it.
You did get Santa's magic sack. You did.
Speaking of, that's probably a pretty good segue for both one of the things I enjoyed most about this movie and one of the things that I feel was also a missed opportunity, and that's the thing that separates Santa Claus from John Wick is the fact that he's a magical being and not just an in fiction magical being. I guess they're both kind of magical beings in some way, right? But
Mm.
Santa Claus, like in this movie, he has this sack full of toys, as Santa Claus does, and he does in one fight, like he's like sort of like having people like punch into it, and that's really really cool. He has his like going up the chimney trick. There's a few different things that happen there, but I almost feel like there are moments where I wish that there was just a tad more of that, because there's moments where it's like it's or less of it, one of the two, because there's moments where I feel like, you know, it really wanted to play that up, and then there's moments where it really plays into the whole like Viking warrior backstory, and I wish that they were married just a little bit more. But the parts that I got from both were really fun, so don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that. I don't know, I could have used a little bit of tightening up.
Yeah, if you make a character like that too magic, then maybe it robs some of the impact of the violence against that character, right? Because he's inching towards invincibility a little bit, right? So you're like, okay, it doesn't really matter what they do to him. He might bleed and stuff, but yeah, if he's too magic, then you start to say, ah, well, he can take anything. Let's just get to the end of this movie. But like, I did dig the flashes of that kind of came out of left field for me, like the whole Viking backstory thing, which I thought was it would have been cool, I think, if there was a little bit more of that, because Brad leaned over to me during the movie and he says, "Oh, what's the movie, babe, that you mentioned?"
The Northman.
Yeah, it's like this is like the Northman North Pole movie or whatever you said at the time.
The North Poleman.
When they were fighting, at one point, you're like, this is just, it was a hand-to-hand combat scene, like I guess mild spoilers for the Northman. There's a big hand-to-hand combat scene, but yeah, it kind of felt like that a little bit. But it's almost like the Viking Northman stuff in this movie was really out of left field and felt very disconnected to me. But I would have liked to see more of it and have it, like you said, Will, woven into this movie a little bit better.
Now, Brad, another question for you, because you mentioned before, and I know that we've talked about it, you're a fan of Home Alone, right? And this movie sort of did a left turn in the middle of the film and sort of like abandoned the Santa character for like one prolonged scene where we follow the girl. At this point, she's like hidden up in the attic where Santa over his walkie-talkie has been like, just stay put. And she decides to set some traps for some of the criminals who come up after her. And what we get is like if Kevin McAllister was a sadistic genius. How did that work for you? Did that work within the context of the movie? Did that work within the context of your Home Alone fandom? Did it not work? Where did you land?
Well, it was interesting because this movie sets this up very, very early on, right? It's like she got to stay up late watching Home Alone last night, wink, wink. And it's like, oh, okay, Home Alone stuff is going to happen. Got it. I kind of forgot about it after that initial mention of Home Alone. And then we get to the attic and we see her like setting some things up. And I'm like, oh, right. Okay. I felt like the traps that she invented, she either accidentally lucked into making the awesomest traps and the goriest traps ever, like something from a Saw movie, or she's just a really sadistic little monster. And the movie doesn't really paint her as such. So my guess is she's just scrappy and reliant on their overconfidence. It worked okay. I wasn't like, cheering in my seat or anything like I did with Home Alone, but some of the traps were interesting. The one where the guy like he falls on the ladder and then the nail like goes through his.
That was one of the better ones. Right?
That was a good one. And when I saw the nail on the stair, I was like, boy, that's so obvious. That's never going to get anybody. But then the sawed through step that breaks and you fall onto it, I was like, okay, that's kind of genius. I don't know. Did it work for you, Will? Because I know you were kind of a Home Alone fan.
Yeah, I enjoy Home Alone. I enjoyed well, I think they changed a couple of times, but I think it was like Home for the Holiday. There's another kind of a horror movie that came out a couple of years ago that was sort of Home Alone inspired. I enjoy that stuff. Here, I think I enjoyed the scene more up front. And it did sort of like towards the end, I was kind of like, okay, I want to get back to Santa stuff, right? Like when they're coming up the ladder and like, the nail stuff, and like there's that set of nails behind them, and you're kind of wondering how all that's going to work out. Um, yeah, that was intense. Our theater made the most audible collective gasp when that nail went through the guy's chin. It was
Yeah.
visceral. But then once they're up top and she's like slinging like bowling balls and stuff like that at them, like there's a certain point where I'm like, all right, either catch her or Santa Claus show up and hammer them or do something. Like, I've had enough Home Alone stuff. I would be interested in what if they did a sequel to this movie where it's like 10 years later and Santa has to come back because he notices that the girl's on his naughty list because she's developed like a penchant for creating these types of traps, and now he has to come back and sort of like right what maybe the wrong that he helped to inspire this night. I know that movie's not going to happen, but
because these people came to my house and tortured my family, and now I'm not going to let anybody enjoy Christmas.
I determined I was really good at making death traps, so
right.
Maybe I'll be the new Saw.
Yeah, she wasn't a complete butcher though, like
No.
like most of the killing that was going on. She was
You
just
guys,
what?
she should be in her own series of horror movies where she is the Saw villain, but it's called Seesaw.
I like it. I love it. Like, and it's all like, it's Saw, but like with almost like schoolyard style stuff. I like it. Yeah.
Cool.
Just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sadistic, but not necessarily murderous stuff.
I mean,
nobody likes to see children get killed. Do they, Jim? No.
She has, in this movie alone, she has a higher kill count than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
That does something to someone. I don't know. I'm sidetracking the conversation, but it was interesting to see that the movie even allowed itself to be sidetracked here. And I think that shows just how kind of okay the movie was with just sort of like doing what seemed like the most fun as opposed to like what had the most grounded, like realistic emotional stakes, because it realized like, yeah, it'd be fun to do some Home Alone traps here, and more so than like it'd be fun to see like Herbie terrorized and have to go to like therapy later or something like that. So I think that made the movie, the violence was more accessible and more fun to go through because the movie lets you treat it sort of like fantasy as opposed to something that felt more grounded.
The violence is accessible. That should be on the poster. Well,
the violence is accessible.
Violence is accessible and diverse. So this movie obviously the writers, I think, of this movie obviously put most of their effort into the kills, right? Like there were several. I mean, there's a lot of gunplay and a lot of shooting and stuff like that and knives, but there's a lot of, I guess, imaginative kills in this movie. I think they tried to go out of their way to come up with like interesting ways to kill off the scores of bad guy characters in this movie. What was your favorite in the movie, you two?
The favorite
kill
in the movie?
The favorite kill, yeah.
Oh, I know what mine was. And it's obviously, like, I think it's the silliest, but I think that it's the one that's like the biggest payoff, and it's the way he killed the John Leguizamo character. At the very end of the movie, Santa and Scrooge, the John Leguizamo character's like criminal nickname, are fighting it out next to like this ruins where there's like a chimney
cabin or whatever,
and we've learned that the John Leguizamo character hates Christmas. He hates Christmas so much. And Santa's fueled by belief, and he realizes in that moment, because he's losing that fight, that oh shit, like he believes, like, you know, if to hate something this much, you have to believe. So he did his little nose trick, went up the chimney with John Leguizamo's character that kind of folds in half and becomes like a blood fountain out the top. It's silly. It's silly, but at the same time, like, it's satisfying, like in a very, like, you know, like the movie had been really setting up like the whole, like, do you believe, you not believe in Christmas? And he used like someone's belief in Christmas to fucking like absolutely body them. I think that was fun.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. It was the first one that came to my mind, Jim, when you asked the question. So, Will, I'm glad you called it out. I guess I'll go with my second favorite, and that was the ice skate sequence. When Santa finds an ice skate in the garage or wherever he is, and he's like, he's got his arm in it, and he's like whacking people with it. And at one point, he like shoves it through a guy's throat, and the guy's head and the ice skate like stay on the wall while the body like falls away, and there's like all these bloody tendrils, and it was gory, it was gross, but I'll never think of an ice skate in quite the same way.
Right, that was a good one. I think my favorite was the same one that you guys, the favorite, or the kind of the one at the end. And I think the movie obviously kind of saved its best for its orgasmic climax at the end. It was kind of like an orgasm, the way it kind of like shot out of the chimney and everything too. Right. Okay. If you think about it that way. Yeah.
Hey, Jim, go see a doctor immediately.
Well, yeah, that's another story we could get into.
If your penis shoots out ton of blood at high explosive velocity, you might need.
There's a story there, but yeah. So the probably the one I liked was the snow thrower. Is that what they call it? A snowblower.
Oh.
The snowblower in the shed, right, where he like attaches the guy with a rope to starts up the snowblower and gets the rope stuck in the kind of the rotor of the snowblower, and then the guy gets like pulled into it and like shot out the nozzle there. So I think that was probably the second most ingenious one that I liked.
That was definitely a good one.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, fellas, I know that as movies go, this one is a little thinner than our normal fare. Maybe not quite as much to talk about, but any other things come to mind that you're just itching to get off your chest?
I think what pushed me over the fence to not really liking this movie so much is that his character, while he was nice to the little girl, he was a dick to his reindeer. He was a fucking jerk to his reindeer. They're doing all the work. He's just riding along, and like, I don't know, gun violence and like just being mean to animals is just not a good combination for me to like a character or a movie.
But David Harbour Santa Claus didn't fire a gun once. He didn't use guns.
No, he didn't. He did not. I'm not saying that. Yeah.
If anything, I think he put a very serious dent in gun violence in one night. No, I get that, Jim, and yeah, I think the thing that was interesting about the reindeer was less like, you know, them itself, but just showing how at the beginning of the movie this was a Santa Claus who was disillusioned even with the idea of being Santa. Like, you know, he's trying to find his own meaning for Christmas. And, you know, instead of these magical beings that fly him across the sky, they're his coworkers who sort of like just shit all over every place and make things more. So he has to Santa Claus has to rediscover the magic of Christmas himself.
He has to believe again too. Right. Yeah. He has to believe. You just have to believe. That's the whole premise of the movie. What is the word? Like at the beginning of the movie, he was like, is it called soft quitting? What is it called? The new term?
Oh, quiet quitting.
Quiet. Yeah, he was quiet quitting Santa at the beginning of this movie. That they needed a joke about quiet quitting, and they would have been, you know,
that would have won you, Jim.
No, I don't know if it would have won me, but it would have made one more funny joke to add on to the two others that were in this movie.
Silent quitting to kind of fit the whole
Yeah,
Silent Night thing.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Will, any final thoughts from you? No, you're
No.
good.
Yeah, no, this one's again, it's what it says on the tin. That's why this one is a bit more of a thin review, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a thin like our views on it are thin, just more like, I mean, again, you're gonna know pretty quickly, like from watching the trailer and hearing what Brad, Jim, and I just said about this movie, whether or not this movie is right for you. If it is, check it out. You know, if it isn't, again, there are plenty of other holiday films that you can check out over the course of the next few weeks to get you in the spirit. You know, do whatever it is that puts you in that wonderful spirit, bloody or not.
Right. And I can say one positive thing about the movie. I don't want to be a total Grinch here, but as far as is it Tommy Wirkola? Is that the director's name?
That's right, Tommy Wirkola.
I will say this film is better than Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. I will say
that. Well, that's good.
His
that's
other
good.
well-known movie. Yeah.
God, that movie was awful. All right. Well, that brings our discussion of Violent Night to a close. Jim, Will, I had such a great time hearing your thoughts. Thank you so much for, just bringing your A podcast game and being entertaining. I appreciate you both. Why don't we go ahead and move on into some plugs? This is the part of the show where we put things on your radar that we enjoy and we think you might like too. And we'll kick things off with Jim. Jim, what's your plug this week?
Yeah, I haven't actually, it's a busy time of year, working and trying to do the Christmas and holiday stuff. And so I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of new stuff other than what we've already reviewed on the show or plugged on the show. But I think Brad or Will, one of you reminded me of a cool documentary that we watched a couple of weeks ago on Netflix. No, it's on Amazon Prime Video. It's called Good Night Oppie, and this is a documentary film that follows Opportunity, which is a Mars, actually Opportunity and Spirit, Mars exploration rovers, and through the eyes of the creators of these rovers and the scientists at NASA and JPL that ran the mission. These rovers were only intended to operate originally on the surface. To get to Mars was a massive engineering feat, just to get them to Mars and get them operating on Mars and bringing back good scientific data about the geological data is generally what they were collecting. But they were only expected to stay alive for 90 days on the surface. But Oppie, one of them, explored the surface of Mars for nearly 15 years. Like, that's incredible. And just the science and engineering, myself being an engineer by training and schooling, found it fascinating. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just like a dry science documentary. Like, this movie legit had me crying about a piece of machinery on the surface of Mars. This is a really great documentary. If you have any interest in like real science and the excitement of exploration and just engineering, like how things work, it's called Good Night Oppie, and it's available on Prime Video. It's a high recommend for me.
Man, such a great plug this week, Jim. We watched it on Thanksgiving Day, so it's been a little bit since we've seen it, but it has stayed with me. In fact, I've been doing all kinds of reading about Opportunity and Spirit and the new rover that was sent. What a crazy time to be alive in terms of space exploration and all the awesome, amazing things that are happening out there. Like you, I freaking bawled during this documentary, and I didn't think I'd cry over machines, but you know what? I totally did. So great plug.
Oh, come on. You cried during Transformers. We know it.
Transformers the movie Animated. Yes, absolutely. I
Yes.
did. Yes.
Yep. Because those are talking machines. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, when your favorite robotic hero dies in a movie,
Right.
it's traumatic. So I'll own that one. I will.
Wouldn't it be
Will.
cool if like in one of the Transformers movies, like when one of them like lands on the moon, they kind of reinvigorate like the rovers that are there and just kind of get some support from them or give them new life or something as Transformers on the moon. That would
Oh,
be
And
cool.
then
that would be great. Oppie like goes and starts pissing oil on someone.
Yeah.
and
I'm
then he's
here. I'm
like, and then he's like, I am Optimus Prime.
here. Optimus Prime. Nice.
Will, what have you got for us this week?
So I'm going a little broad with my recommendation in that, like, no one needs to recommend a Steven Spielberg movie, but I'm going to recommend a Steven Spielberg movie. The Fablemans has his latest film, and it's sort of a coming of age story about, well, honestly, himself. Like, this is very much like an autobiographical of sorts story about Spielberg. About a young man who's growing up, learning about himself and who he wants to be and how he wants to sort of like experience the world through the films that he's making and his passion for that, all while learning about his family's interpersonal dynamics and how some family secrets are starting to pull those apart. The two adult leads in this, his parents are Paul Dano and Michelle Williams, who, I mean, both of them are fantastic actors, and we see them in a lot of things. Jim, I know you're a big Michelle Williams stan, and
And
I
Paul
think,
Dano. Yep.
and Paul Dano as well. I think this is one of Michelle Williams' strongest performances. She chews through this movie. Like, she gets to do some big acting, she gets to do some small acting, and all of it is very good acting. So I really enjoyed this one. There's it's got Spielberg charm, while also being very much grounded in just sort of like this family dynamic, this emotionality. It's a good movie. The Fablemans, the new Steven Spielberg movie in theaters now. I recommend it.
Awesome. Well, so it's definitely on. I think it's definitely on my list. I think it's on our list together. I think,
Yep.
Brad, you said you were interested. Big screen or streaming? Okay. What do you think?
This is a movie that is very much about the movie going experience in a lot of ways. So
Right.
while there's no like big explosions or whatever, that
Yeah.
like that you need the big screen experience for, I think this movie is really about, and it has a couple of scenes where someone is sitting in a movie theater just sort of like feeling the magic of movies. So I feel like that's more strongly captured when you're doing the same. So I would see this in theaters if possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Will.
All right. Awesome. Appreciate that. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. Tom. Hey, Tom. Tom says Michelle Williams just keeps getting better. She was Gwen Vernon. Yeah, Michelle Williams has done a lot in her career. I'm excited to see her in this one as well. It's funny, Jim, didn't you used to call Michelle Williams like the dollar store?
No, it's the other way around.
Is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget who
Okay.
the actress is. The actor is who really kind of looks like her and is also in a lot of movies. But
I
and
forget her name.
I don't mean to
Carrie
denigrate
something?
her. I don't mean to. Yeah, Carrie. Is that it? Something Carrie?
I
Are you
forget.
thinking Carrie Mulligan?
Carrie Mulligan.
Yes, Carrie Mulligan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Carrie Mulligan's great. And I don't mean to denigrate her in relationship to Michelle Williams, but I just like to, I have called her like the dollar store Michelle Williams, because I think Michelle Williams kind of gets the bigger marquee a lot of times. And Carrie Williams is like the workhorse, great actor, but, doesn't really get the, she works kind of in the background. So, yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see Carrie Mulligan in a big movie next year.
Love Michelle Williams
It'll
and
balance
Carrie
out.
Mulligan. Yeah.
They're both amazing. They really are.
Put them in the same movie as twins. That would be great.
Nice. For me this week, I'm going to plug something that I don't normally plug, and that is our podcast. And the reason I'm plugging our podcast is because next week, relative to when we are recording, our next recording date is December 13th, 2022. It is the 10-year anniversary of the Movie Bears podcast, which blows my mind. I think it's insane. We've been doing
10
this for a
years.
decade. I know. But not only is it our 10-year celebration episode, it is also our cozy sweater episode. It is our holiday celebration. So we're going to be joined by a cavalcade of guest stars next week from episodes past to help us celebrate the holidays and celebrate probably one of the best decades of my life. I love doing this show with you, Jim, and with you, Will. We're going to have Chris Lopez back, the sexy voice of the Movie Bears podcast from the OG crew. He's going to make a return. He'll be with us the whole episode. And then we'll be having a whole bunch of friends from a whole bunch of different shows coming in to say hi and share their favorite holiday movies with us. We'll keep it on topic. We'll talk about holiday movies. There's no specific movie that we're reviewing for next week. You don't have homework to do. But we would love to hear your favorite holiday movies. We might even share some of them on the episode. So come hang out with us live. We're going to be getting on the airwaves at 5:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So come join us for that. But if you can't make it, we totally understand. Listen through the magic of digital tape delay, but let us know what those holiday movies that you love are by tossing us a line on Facebook or Twitter, or wherever you like to contact us. And we'll be sure to compile a master list or something that could be fun. But looking forward to our anniversary holiday bash with you guys. Are you guys in disbelief about 10 years, or is it just me?
I'm in disbelief, but I'm more excited to to have some of our old friends back on the show again, and also to talk about people's favorite holiday movies, because maybe I'm always kind of on the look for something I might not have seen or maybe even heard about before, and this is a chance maybe to hear about something and give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years is a long time. But what's exciting is that, it feels in some ways like, we're just getting started, right? And that's what's exciting too. So, yeah, I'm excited to hang out with all of our friends. Hell, a sliver of our friends, right? We've met so many amazing people over the last 458 episodes of doing this show. But I'm excited that we get to hang out with a few of them and just sort of celebrate the seasons, sort of wear our cozy sweaters, grab our hot cocoa or eggnog, and just really have just a fun, cozy evening.
Question: can I drink hot cocoa and eggnog? Can I double fist it?
I think you.
I don't know what that'll do to your digestive system, but yeah.
Yeah.
You could.
Oh goodness!
I say do it and do not report back.
Hey guys, remember that idea I had? Yeah. Oh,
that was a bad chemistry experiment.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out with us this week. It was a pleasure as always. If you'd like to catch up on the 457 episodes that have come before this one, feel free to hit us up in your favorite podcast app. I think most podcast apps only go back the last 100 episodes. So you actually can't access the other 357 maybe through your app, but you just Google Movie Bears Podcast or go to moviebearspodcast.com. Will lovingly puts all of our episodes up on the website each week. Thanks for doing that, Will. Jim, thank you for doing all the editing to get the show ready to go up. You can peruse those past episodes there. And
my pleasure.
If you need something to do over your holiday break, listening to a bunch of episodes of the show, could be something you might enjoy. So have fun and be safe. We'll see y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.